RV parks. That's got to be the most exciting thing I've said to you today.
Oh, dude, I just got chills. I don't know if you know that. Like, I just gave cousin Eddie a high five over here at the house.
If cousin Eddie could make near the money that you could parking him at one of these parks, I would be an investor with you.
Yeah,
But I'm not going to be.
Let's just say our guest today, Ian Burnstein, is a master at understanding how to make RV parks profitable. And he does a great job of explaining all of the different places in an RV park that could make money for an investor. And as he's saying it, I'm like, I am missing the boat. Cousin Eddie is dragging me down. I've got to be a part of these RV parks. This is where the money's at.
If he would have, maybe Eddie has led you to the proverbial dollar, man. Maybe because of the RV park, we had the conversation with Ian. Otherwise, maybe we would not have been interested in it. Like, I can't be that much money in that stuff. But whenever he starts saying, no, I've got water parks that are earning $1,000 a day.
No, $1,000 an hour.
Oh, an hour.
You missed that, Russ. Come on.
Well, listening is not always my strong suit. I think we covered that in a previous episode. That's a struggle for men, right? Listening. Yeah, I agree. Like, it is golf carts, Apple cannons is something he told us after we stopped pressing record. Like, I'm just fascinated by the revenue generating opportunities in the RV space. Something that you and I had looked into briefly, but without any level of expertise,
and didn't know who to talk to about it. There's not many experts out there.
There's not, and I think that's why this is such a really cool kind of blue ocean type opportunity, because the space is still fragmented. It's still mom and pop centric. And that's where people are coming in with money, are able to take kind of new technology, new insight, bringing, flair to the space. And then people like yourself who are traveling in RVs across the country are looking for those kind of places to stay in, not the place that I stayed in. Because my place, Ian today talked about his RV parks are all on water. And the little park that I took your little cousin Eddie down to at the beach, I didn't go to the beach. I was like 5 miles off the beach, and they did have water. It was a fishing pond the size of a good sized puddle in my backyard.
Well, let me say this. The thing that we didn't talk about today with Ian, which I think we should, and it gives validity to this idea, is that RV parks, if you haven't thought about this, are a new answer to affordable housing. There are more people that are living year-round in these type of parks because it's literally the cheapest possible way that they can live, and it gives them the freedom or flexibility to be able to move somewhere else if need be.
So here's one of the things that I didn't get a chance, because we're at the end of the episode. So I'm going to ask you about this. I don't want to sour the episode, but me, the contrarian, is always thinking of something. He made a comment toward the end that RV parks are one of the most affordable, or RV travel is one of the most affordable ways to travel. Quantify that for me, because my personal experience did not meet that.
I think what he means by that is for long-term type of travel. And what I mean by that is the people that I met on the road when we were doing our big trip last year, some of them were year-round people. And you're talking about, they didn't buy necessarily the super nice, land yacht, if you will. They bought the pull behinds, and they had a truck, and they all piled into it, and they drove that thing around, and they would get these year-round passes that they would be able to stay at any park for free because they paid a yearly pass. So it made them decide where they were going to go and stay at these particular parks so that they could get in essentially for free. And the amount that would cost you compared to, going and staying in hotels and or flying someplace or whatever it may be, even with gas considerations and maintenance issues, I could see what he's talking about. It is significantly cheaper for that person. Now, if you're going to rent Cousin Eddie and go out there for like a month, it's going to be an expensive bill because he's on a nightly basis.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like I rented Cousin Eddie, and then I rented the place down there, and I was like $600 in, $700 in before gas. And I'm like, I mean, for 2 nights where I stayed, like I could have been down there for $450 plus gas on a car, which would have been obviously significantly cheaper. So like for me, I was like, that wasn't cheaper, but maybe it's because I only did 2 nights. If I would have stayed like,
well, I'm thinking he's talking about when you own something and you use it over and over and over again, the actual value could be a lot cheaper, especially if you're getting those annual passes.
Well, either way, I don't care. I want to be a part of the ownership of the RV park. I don't care if it's cheaper or not. I think people think it is. And I'm with you. I went to a place that was not fancy at all, and at least 80% of the slots were full. Yeah. And it was not a real amenity. They had a swing set, like that was, they had a quote unquote fishing pond. Like, I mean, yeah, that, when you can throw your line across the pond and hit it on the other bank, like that was what I was trying not to do. It's like I was like, trying to stop it before it got across the pond so that I could stay in the water. That's not an amenity, but that place was packed. It was packed out. And I know that there's got to be money in that. I'm super excited to hear Ian jump into our passive income mastermind in March and share. I know you're sharing that right now. wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/club200. If you're an accredited investor and you're looking to build passive income to exceed your monthly expenses, not by 1 time, but 2 times to get to 200%. That's the reason why we call it Club 200. We want to build a legacy. We want to be a more well-rounded investor. That group exists for you to be able to connect with other people, to find opportunities for passive income, but also find ways to reduce taxes. I hope that you'll join us in there. Joey, let's don't take any more time away from our interview today with Ian Burnstein.
Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
If you've ever wanted to get away and have a great escape, you're in for a treat today. Ian Burnstein with SPM Advisors is joining us. Ian, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And I thought this was like a travel commercial, Joey, that you're going into there. I didn't know where you're going. Ian,
Dude, I'm excited. Like, we're getting to talk about RV parks today. Like,
what could be better?
This is huge, man.
What could be better?
Joey bought an RV, and all he could talk about is RV parks, everything RV. So this was an easy conversation for us to have. Ian, thank you for coming on the show. I do want to jump into a story, though. I want to come back to maybe before you were in the RV park space. Take us back to 2007. You're sitting down with some business partners, and you're thinking about the opportunity that they're presenting you. I want you to kind of let everybody know what's going on and how that transaction transfolded.
Yeah, no, it's a fun story. Kind of got my start. So yeah, we in 2006 we had an exit. We had a small self-storage portfolio, 3 properties, did exceptionally well on it. We were doing all other kinds of real estate and residential and some little bit of industrial. And so my partners came to me and said, let's be full partners now. I said, that's great. No more salary. Great. I want to take more equity. Perfect. And met with them, and they presented me a deal that was impossible for anybody in my position to take. I mean, it was no salary, no sweat equity, no fees at all for doing the work, basically shoulder to shoulder, same terms with them while they were running their business, and I was running this for the 3 of us. And so I said, it's just not workable. I said, I'd be better off going on my own. And one of the partners said, you're not ready, you'll never make it. And I said, I guess we'll see. And he said, you're quitting? I said, you really left me no choice. And so I walked out, called my wife and said, I just quit. We actually just were pregnant with our second. And she said, good, you got this.
So
Wow.
so basically, you were then at that point you're quitting. So they're in essence buying your shares out.
Yeah. So the way it ended up progressing over a period of time was, we'd sold the storage, and then I thought I was going to be working full time. We were doing, in fact, I was going to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. We had 8 developments, residential developments, totaling over 2,000 lots. And I was prepared to move there for a period of time to see these all through. And eventually they said to me, if you're leaving us, you got to be out of this business too. We're going to buy you out. And they kind of forced a sale on me, which, ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me because, a year later, the whole world tanked. And so,
Oh, wow.
So in 2007, as you're listening in, say this, 2007, it doesn't take a rocket science to go back and realize where the world was. Everything's on the top, right? I mean, I'm sure they didn't want to pay you top dollar, but you still got a decent amount of money. And the other thing that you're getting ready to do was start the real estate development business.
yeah.
So they bought you out and they said, by the way, you can't participate in our real estate development business that a year later was worthless.
Worthless would have been a good result. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. I mean, it was tough. I thought, listen, I actually am very close now with those guys. One of them I've stayed close the whole time. Another one we've reconnected, and they were really good to me. I learned a ton, and that was just dumb luck on my part. But I would never have wished that on them. But it just, it was a monstrous collapse, as everyone knows, and being in the development business and being at the stages that we were at, I was on the personal guarantee on all those deals. So part of my leaving was getting my name off all the guarantees, got all my equity back, and made a little something for it. And been, the world has a funny way of working. It was very crowded for me.
So yeah, this is like the golden child story, is what I'm hearing at this point. So where did the golden child go from here? Like, what was the next step after?
Yeah, so I really had no idea what I was going to do. I had no clue. At the time, I was using technology in real estate, using all this data to try to locate better sites for development, and actually was working with some other clients, trying to help them find locations. And I thought I was going to do a lot of that. And then about 6-7 months later, I actually met my now partner. Coincidentally, I had my broker's license, and somebody wanted me to buy their storage portfolio. Didn't work for me. He came in to see it. He was actually ironically dating somebody in town. He's from Boston. I was in the car with him. It was 6 properties all over the state of Michigan. So we're driving around all day. He's yelling at his old partners. I'm yelling at mine, talking to our attorneys. It's this whole, and I'm like, oh my God, their stories sound identical. We both had just sold to the same guy, almost the identical time. And we started talking. And then from that conversation, a week later, we had a signed deal with an equity partner. And 4 months later, we owned 8 properties. So it was that fast.
Wow.
It was crazy. I was working out of a tiny office that I shared with somebody. It was me, him, and each of our assistants. And at one point, in a 1,500 square foot office, there was I had 8 people working for me before our new office was ready, and we're just jammed in there and just cranking out just a tremendous amount of work.
And to be clear, this was, when you say properties, you're talking now in the self-storage space.
Self-storage properties, yeah. So that business was great for us.
Just continued on in the success you had previously.
Yeah, so we bought the properties, and then obviously, the recession hit. And so we were, in a standstill for about a year. Banks weren't really doing, they were just in shock, and they weren't really taking back properties just yet. And so we finally got our lender came to us. Everybody else was renegotiating deals and getting a lower rate or marking down some of their debt. We were doing too well, and our banks wouldn't do anything for us. And so ultimately we just got extensions on our loans, and we were the only ones without any kind of blood on our hands. And so all of a sudden the banks started calling us and bringing deals to us. And I signed on just an obscene amount of, I signed about $75 million of personal guarantees. And we went out, my partner and I, and we bought just under 70 properties in 8 states between the end of 19 and beginning of 13. And I was on a plane 2-3 times a week, I mean, I was working 16, 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, we were managing ourselves, buying the properties, improving them. And we just built a great team around us. And then kind of 13 hit, and we started refinancing everything, take our name off everything, and basically return back all of our investor equity already. And we were buying things 20, 30 cents on the dollar. And then finally in 14, 15, and since then we've now sold everything. We had a huge, we sold 37 assets at one time at the end of 15.
Wow.
And our investors made 6-7 times their money.
So, and I know that you've recently moved to a different space, but before we go there, what was it about the storage facility space? We've heard that. We've actually had a previous guest that talked about the storage area as kind of recession proof, right? Like when people are constantly storing their stuff, and if they're moving out of homes and having to downsize, a lot of times they got to put the stuff somewhere, right? And I saw that with my in-laws in 2015. They sold a lake house, and they went, took all the lake house furniture and shoved it in a storage unit for 2 years. And then they were like, why did we do that? We don't need it. And they just sold it. But that's what happens, right?
No, absolutely. So listen, I got into it the same way everybody else does, right? Now it's different. I mean, back in 2000, it was not very, it was not so common, right? There was very few banks making loans in the space, very little institutional money in the space. There was a couple REITs. Now there was 3, now there's 6. And it just was not like a really well-known space at the time. And I got into it because my partners at the time, before I left the law firm, they were building another trucking facility about 60 miles away from the office. And they had a bunch of land. And we bought a 47-acre parcel. I was a partner on the deal. We needed like 4 of the acres for the trucking company, and the rest was on a busy street. And they said, we're paving all these, paving and trucking for all these storage buildings. There's got to be something to it. Go figure it out. So hired a consultant, went to a couple trade shows. Next thing I know, I got a shovel in the ground. We're building out our first facility. Loved it. Built out a second one, and we built a third. It's just, it's been an incredible business, but it is very much unrecognizable to where it was 22 years ago. And I speak about it a lot, and in full transparency, I will probably get back into it here in short order, in a kind of a unique model. But, you got to believe things can't continue like this forever. And at some point, there'll be other buying opportunities, and that's when I'll get back in full. Well,
so when you say it's unrecognizable to 20 years ago, in what ways?
You would be hard pressed to find a private equity fund that does real estate deals that is not either in storage already or looking to be in storage. They probably don't exist.
So it's just attracted that institutional money so heavily that it's hard for the investor like you and I to get the profits that we want.
So numbers don't lie, right? So if you look at just the REITs over the last 20 years, by far the best performing REIT class has been storage. There's not even a close second. I actually kind of would kind of refute a comment you made earlier. I would not say it's a recession proof. I'd say it's recession resistant. It definitely performed better than most, but trust me, I've got a friend who we end up buying and selling a bunch of properties to one another. We're partners on a couple of things together. And, at one point during the recession, they lost 60, 70 properties to the bank. Right. So it's certainly not bulletproof, but it is certainly better. And it is definitely a great asset class. It's way harder than people think, by the way.
Well, what would you say is the connection then? Why RV parks? What was it that what you saw in them that was not in the same line of storage facilities?
Yeah. Well, I'll take just a quick step back. So really, after we started selling our storage facilities, I wanted to diversify. And so, and all my investors were calling me because we did so well for them. They say, what's next? And so they wanted us to find more opportunities, which I was happy to do. And, I know enough to be dangerous about the apartment world. And we did some student housing. We did a cold storage facility, a couple of industrial buildings. And so our model was really to go, we're not, money raisers, but we bring our investors to deals and we become a general partner in certain areas that we feel strongly about the opportunity, but even more strongly about the operator. So my partner in the RV space is a guy by the name of Ricky Jenkins, and Ricky owns a company called the Jenkins Organization, and they we were in a best practices group together in self-storage. I put this together, a long time ago. There were 6 of us around the country that were not in competing locations, and we would get together 2-3 times a year and share ideas. Ricky and I became good friends, and our marketing people would meet without us. Our financial people would, talk about how they account for things. Our operational folks would meet, and so it was a great thing to do when I was heavy into the storage management. And so ultimately, Ricky and I became good friends. As I started selling a bunch of assets, he started selling a few as well, and we kind of started talking, what's next? And he said, I'm kind of working on something. My team is really, a bunch of my team members used to work in the RV space, and they're really pushing me. I've spent some time. I think there's something there. He goes, I'm working on a business plan. I'll get it to you. I said, great. So he sent it to me. I started reading it. Within 5 minutes, I knew that this is, genius. And so really what I like most about it is it's really storage 25 years ago, right? Storage back in the day, if you build it, they will come. You buy a piece of land, you put the building up, you buy a yellow page ad, people will come. Very different today. But today, all the same metrics exist. You got fragmented owners, tons of mom and pop, very few institutional players, lack of financing available, and it's very expensive to build. So there's a lot of inhibitors for just people coming into the space.
So that same institutional buyer who's heavy into self-storage this isn't on their radar yet, is what you're saying.
It's coming. It's really, we're already starting to see it. A new REIT just formed. It's prices already creeping up. Competition's creeping up. There's more bidders on the deals. It's coming. And so we're really trying to get out there as much in front of it as we can. We've already bought 16 parks. We've placed just over $100 million of equity and about another $125 million of debt. And we're currently doing another fund that's actually going to raise another $100 million of equity.
So tell me about the play in RV parks. Where do you see the cash flow?
So it's interesting. So there's a couple different ways to do it. There's different kinds of parks, right? There's parks that people live at, right? The numbers are staggering. The numbers of RVs that exist out in the country right now are incredible. And you've also got, Thor Industries, which is the leader in building RVs, has a $14 billion backlog of product that they need to build. And so you could have parks where people live. You also have seasonal parks where people will pay for the year, and it's almost like having a second home, right? Like people will leave their RV there in the off season, and they pay for the whole season. What we're really focused on right now are these family parks, right? A destination park. And so as long as they're within, 2-3 hours of major metropolitans, you're going to get a ton of activity. And so we go out, we have first-class parks that we build. We'll buy things below replacement cost. So we'll buy an existing park, and then we usually put in, we'll double or triple the amount that we put in for the acquisition in improvements. So it's always on water. We always add in a water park. We have all kinds of amenities. Like we have things called Wibbits, which are, playgrounds in the water. We'll have boat rentals. We'll have fishing. We'll have pickleball courts. There's any sport you can imagine. There's arts and crafts. It's like going to camp. Your kids are completely entertained. There's just an enormous amount of things to do when you get there.
I just read this comment. It was so drawing joy. I wanted to share it. I realized that my time is not really mine. It's my company's. Now I have to stop negotiating my time for money, and I need to start working to become financially free.
That's exactly how I felt when my daughter Adler asked me on the way to school, Dad, can you pick me up from school today? And I had to say, no, baby, I have to go to work. That's where I drew the line.
In order for you to be clear on the things you need to do and stop doing, and to know who you need to become so that you can stop trading time for money, join us right now at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com. /passport.
Now let's get back to this episode.
How did you guys settle on they always are on water? What was it about that attracted you?
Just the amenity. It's you need to have people want to come to your place, right? You got to have things that's attractive to them, and so it's a summer activity, right? We make hay basically, Memorial to Labor Day. We've been, not because the weather has changed. Anybody can argue why it is, but it's changed. And the falls have actually become better. We actually are still getting people out there through Thanksgiving now. So we're getting things like Halloween weekends or Thanksgiving weekends, and we're working on some tailgate weekends. So people come watch college football on Saturday and NFL on Sunday, and just try to squeeze more days out of the year.
Is there something that, like, from that, you mentioned water parks? That's huge. What other sorts of revenue are you guys finding opportunities to be able to enhance? Because you guys aren't just building ground up; you're buying mom and pop stuff.
So we are building 4 now. 2 are almost done. One's under construction, and then the 4th is a little bit delayed with just some approvals. But really, it's there's great opportunities. I mean, there's little things along the way. So, for example, when you're doing a seasonal park, the average person will spend about $2 a day at the restaurant and the store on site, right? The people that are the dailies spend over $34 a day per person, right? We now have great amenities, so we start charging a resort fee. It's amazing to me that people, want to have golf carts to get around the property. We will make more money on the golf cart rental than on the RV rental for the space. We have a property last year that we did over $1 million of just golf cart rental. The Wibbits that I mentioned, which are, those play structures in the water, there's like rock climbing things on there. There's things you jump off and you propel someone else into it, and slides. Those things generate $1,000 an hour of profit on the weekends.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And the store, we do great in the store. And then, we get food trucks we bring on the property. And one of them has like a margarita cart that drives around and is busy all day long. And, we have pizza and ice cream and donuts, all the kind of stuff you sell to make a lot of money on. And then what's really been a great revenue generator for us is kind of the change of the parks is that we have 2 things. We have glamping tents, which have become very popular. And then we have these cabins. Last year, the cabins were rented for the full season by mid-April. These cabins are great. So think, Joey, you've got an RV, and Russ, if you wanted to, you and your family wanted to go with them on a trip and you didn't have an RV, you could either drive out there with them or follow them. And then, Joey and his family stay in the RV, you stay in the cabin. In the cabin, air conditioned, 2-bedroom, flat screen TV, a mini kitchen, bathroom. And so it's a huge deck usually, and they're usually on the water. And so those things have been wildly popular. In fact, they're so popular, we've not been able to find any to purchase. So we actually, our biggest supplier, the guy we like the best, we bought out his whole inventory for 2022, and he actually became a significant investor in our last fund.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it sounds like to me, it's a similar model to like a multifamily syndication, in the sense that you find something that is undervalued, that you have the expertise and the ability to add additional revenue streams that then increases the multiple you're able to get on the back end. Is the ultimate kind of play to kind of build that value and sell quickly? Yeah. Is it to build the value, refinance out, and continue to hold long term? What's ultimately like your overall strategy?
So great question. First, it is generally similar to apartments, in the sense of the structure. The key difference here is you have a lot more levers to pull and be more creative. You're pretty limited in what you can do in apartments, right? So, our play is to buy generally speaking, the people we're buying from, it's usually a husband and wife who've been operating the park for 15 years, living there, and they're exhausted, right? And they're going to make a great exit for them. They're thrilled. They just don't have it in them anymore to make the things, changes that we do. I mean, we're very sophisticated in how we do things. Our software, if a certain place is filling up quicker, we'll raise the rents. Dynamic pricing. There's all kinds of areas to to improve revenue, but it takes money to be able to build those things out too, right? And a lot of people either don't have it or don't want to spend it, right? We bought a park in Ohio in May for it was right around $3 million, and the sellers were making $500,000 a year. They were clearing, right? They're probably thrilled with that amount. They don't need to go and invest $3 million to build a water park, or spend like $4 million to add on another 100 pads. They're just not going to do that, right? So that's what we do. And management's key. So there's some people are probably familiar with Jellystone parks. They've probably seen the signs around off the highway. Jellystone is they manage about 85 parks around the country, and they don't manage it. It's actually a franchise model. And their VP of operations, who was in charge of all 85 parks, came to work for us a year and a half ago. And she's wonderful and has tremendous connections through the space. And actually has been very critical in helping us find and acquire new sites as well. She's out there teaching classes on how to manage facilities, so people know her.
Is there a specific area? I know you mentioned being on the water, and you just mentioned Ohio. Is there a specific demographic that tends to, lend themselves to going to an RV park? So, like, obviously, we're in the South. You're in the Midwest. Is there an area that you guys are focusing on, or you think that's a hot opportunity? Tell us a little bit about that.
So we're already in 10 states. We have one under contract in Alabama, Chestnut Bay.
Nice.
We have another one looking at Missouri. But to answer your question, we use data and analytics, very thoroughly. So we have all the data about where people are that have, who own RVs. So we know a lot about that. And then a lot of it boils down to drive times from major metropolitans. So we bought one in December in a city called Bremen, Georgia. Bremen's kind of out there, and it's not in the metropolitan area at all, but it is, it is certainly a great location because it's less than an hour from Atlanta. It's less than an hour from Birmingham. It is, and I think Chattanooga and Knoxville. It's within a good drive time as well. So we pull from, a number that's like 15 million people, right? And we could tell you how many people own RVs in those areas. So we're really, high on that opportunity. And so a lot of it depends on what the guts of the original park are, right? This one is something we're just going to be able to expand significantly. We bought it for $10 million. We're going to put another $20 million into it. One of the biggest changes that's also happened is there's sites that are out there that are just like Airbnb, like one's called Outdoorsy. And you're able to use your RV like an Airbnb. And so your RV that used to go out with your family 3 times a year, your RV can go out 20 times a year now.
Yes, so that's exactly the platform that we use for Cousin Eddie, my pride and joy. And just to give context, like if you've never been on an RV trip and you haven't experienced this, what Ian's talking about is a huge opportunity, because I can't tell you from here to California and back, the number of places that we visited, all of them had a different way that you pay, a different rate that you pay. And it varied from the little place that was like, hey, just drop by the office, and if we're not there, just leave the money under the mat kind of thing. It's $27 or whatever for the night. And then there's the one just down the street that's $150 a night for the same, for literally just one night kind of rental.
Yeah.
And it was so different, like the whole process. I can see exactly what you're saying. And some places had all these amenities and they were book solid, and other places had very little to do other than just park, and they had people that lived there year round, as you mentioned. So it's a wide open space. And so for you guys to apply a very strategic business model to the space, couple that with the pandemic and people just needing to get away because they're stuck at home, they're working at home, they're everything is right there. They have no outlet. Now they're buying RVs and they're just saying, let me just get out of town. So,
Stallion, is there a question in there somewhere?
I'm just validating. Okay, can I validate my brother here? Come
all
on.
right, I got a question for you. And so we've pumped it up, but the skeptics out there are saying, ask him, Russ. Ask him. What's the downside? Where's the negatives? Where are the things that I need to be thinking about? A second ago, we were talking about storage facilities. You said I'm going to refute the recession proof, but recession resistant, right? So talk to us about RV parks. Talk to us about the areas that you guys are having to mitigate risk in.
So one of the things I like the most is that they're, as far as once they're up and running, I struggle to find some of the holes, right? I mean, I would tell you, first thing people think is gas prices, right? But there's been study after study that does not impact it, right? It is still, regardless of what you do, it is the most affordable way for a family to travel. You just cannot find a more affordable way. It does not exist, right? So gas would have been one of them. The other would be labor, right? So we struggled this year a bit. We've implemented a bunch of new procedures with technology that allow us to kind of fill some of those voids where payment methods, things like that. A lot of it's going to be through kiosk, right? So there's some things that we can do that are certainly going to help and reduce our labor requirements. But that's definitely a concern. And then the other one would be construction prices, which has certainly have gone up since we've done some of our budgets, and we've had to make adjustments there. But it has not, all things considered, is a small impact overall on the project. But I'll tell you, you sometimes get off to a slower start than you want because of supply chain or labor issues, right? So we've had a couple of parks that first year have been challenging the last year or two. But by the second year, those issues are all gone and we've caught up. And so the 3 parks that we've owned now for 2 full seasons, going into our third year, all 3 of those we're refinancing and pulling out 100% of the equity, right? And we think returns are still going to be in the high teens on your initial investment. So our plan on this fund is do the same. I think within 5 years, we refinance the whole fund. We think you'll get back most, if not all, your money, and still get returns. So I think you asked me a little while ago, which I neglected to answer, was like, what's the plan? And the plan is, if I get back people their money, and there's if you put in $100,000 and you got it all back in year 4 or 5 plus some already returned, and then I can get you $20,000 a year, you'd kill me if I sold it, right? So until such factors come along that really push us to sell, whether it's the asset's getting old and tired and it's going to require a lot of capital expenditure and we don't want to do that, or we get an offer that's so obscene that we have to take it.
And if the big institutional money is getting in the space, then you don't worry about, because what I was listening to is we're buying a park for $3 million, we're going to put another $4 to $10 million into it, right? So clearly you're going to start to weed out the individual buyers. You're going to have to get into big institutional monies that's going to be the purchaser of your end product. But what you're saying is that you're already starting to see that. You saw it happen in the storage space, so you know that at some point it doesn't matter if the assets were $15 or $20 million. It's just cash flow on that is all they're looking for.
Yeah, there are definitely 3 players right now that would, if we told them we'd sell, we could make a fortune, right? There's no doubt in my mind all 3 would buy us. And what I found, here's a fascinating fact. So we just our last fund, we thought would take us 2 years to fill out. It only took us about 6 months. We just happened to find 4 great projects, raised the money real quick anyway. So, we raised it was like 48 million and change. Literally did it with an email out to my investment group base, and they sent to friends who sent to friends. And next thing I knew, the thing was full in about 60 days or so. But so we got the 4 parks purchased, and we just got our financing in place. We got the appraisals back on 3 of the 4 parks. One of them, the appraisal came back 17 more, a valuation of 17 more than our all-in capital. One was 14 million, the other was 11. So that was shocking to me. Usually appraisals don't come back that favorable, but just shows you, by creating this value, what we're able to do.
Man, so cool. I'd love to sit here and talk RVs with you, but we gotta go. I know that you're going to be sharing inside of our passive income mastermind coming up a lot more detail, especially to the fund and other things that you were talking about. I'm going to encourage everyone, if you're not already a member of that and you're an accredited investor, go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/club200. Take advantage of the opportunity to be around other smart people and listen to absolutely smart people just like Ian right now. Ian, if the person who's listening to you wants to connect, obviously you're in the community, but what would be other ways that they could get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would just email me at Ian, IAN, at spmadvisorsllc.com. And I'm a very good responder. So very hyper responsive.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Well, man, Ian, thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate you sharing RV stuff with Joey and I. And as always, thank you for listening to this episode. Please share it with someone who you know is interested in the RV space. Maybe they need to rent Joey's cousin Eddie out and take it to one of Ian's parks. I don't know what it looks like.
Absolutely. That's a win-win.
Yeah. You bring Eddie, we take great care of you if you bring Eddie.
That's awesome.
Well, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us, Ian.
Thanks for having me.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.